Okay, let's start with the webinar. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Winning Strategies and Best Practices for Government Prospecting webinar. My name is Veronica Doga. I am the Program Director of the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, PTAC for short, in Nebraska. This is the first webinar for the Winning Strategies for Government Contracting webinar series. We have scheduled one webinar per month starting now through June, and you can find the schedule of future events on NBDC's website. Just to give you a little background about Nebraska Business Development Center, NBDC offers various services to small businesses in Nebraska. Some of these services are exporting assistance, market research, technology commercialization, financial projections, business valuation, professional development training, and government contracting. The government contracting assistance is offered by the PTAC. We have PTAC consultants across the state in Omaha, Nebraska, Lincoln, Wayne, and Kearney. Our certified consultants provide confidential, impartial services and educational opportunities to businesses that are interested in selling their products and services to the state, local, and federal governments. Our services include government market research, where you can discover new markets, finding upcoming opportunities, bidding assistance and proposal review, certification and registration assistance, training and networking events, which includes webinars, workshops, and seminars, Meet the Buyer conference, and I encourage you to visit our website for a comprehensive upcoming events and conferences listing. This morning we have Joshua Frank as presenter, who is the Managing Partner for our SM Federal and the Managing Partner for a Federal Access Program. Mr. Frank specializes in the development and implementation of techniques and strategies for government contracting. His training sessions are consistently rated as one of the strongest sessions at national conferences and events. Josh, the microphone is yours.
Excellent. All right. First of all, good morning, everybody. And as we already know, we're going to be talking about the strategies for government prospecting. And let's go ahead and get started. All right, so first things first. Something I want you guys to think about. There's two identical companies, right? They sell identical products, identical services. Both companies have gotten help from various assistance centers. They've gone to the same conferences, both regional and national. They have attended the same webinars. They've bought the same books on Amazon. They've gone to the same associations. Let's say they're both certified by the SBA. Let's say they're 8A or they're veteran-owned, and they've attended all the same training sessions. One company wins contracts and the other does not. One company wins $3.8 million in the first 18 months, and the other company doesn't make a single penny. Both were trained exactly the same way. So why does one company succeed and the other fails? Okay, also, make sure here, there are currently 17,000 companies that have a GSA schedule. Okay, if you don't know what a schedule is, it is a government-wide acquisition contract known as a federal supply schedule, and most popular, right, in the government space. You don't win any money with a schedule, but it gives you a license to hunt. If you've heard of GSA schedules, let me level set here for a minute. In 2013, there were 22,000 companies with a schedule. 54%, or about 12,000 companies, had less than 50,000 in sales. 37%, about 8,000 of those companies, didn't make a single penny. Jump forward 3 years, all right, to last year. 17,000. Why is there such a decrease? Because GSA terminated about 4,000 of them, and those are many of the companies that weren't making any money. 45% had less than 50,000 in sales, 29% had none. Those are huge numbers, okay? So when you hear people say to you, well, oh, it's low-hanging fruit, No. You know, when you get spammed by all these companies because you're in SAM, System for Award Management, when you're getting all these emails about, you know, we'll help you with your schedule, they don't publicize and tell you that almost half of all companies with a schedule fail. Now, why do so many companies fail? Right? It's not because of what they sell. They had to prove that they were a decent company to get a schedule in the first place. So why do 50% of schedule holders fail? Why do two companies all train the exact same way, one succeeds and makes millions and the other fails? The big question is why? Because it's not what you learn. I can't stop my foot strong enough. It's not what you learn. It's how you apply it. And this is absolutely critical for prospecting and business development, and you may hear it as capture, you know, in the federal space, and sales. So that's to get us started. My name is Josh Frank. As you're already told, I run RSM Federal. I've been in the market for about 25 years. Yes, our company, if you've heard of Federal Access, we run that program. I'm a former Intel officer. I'm a huge small business advocate, okay? So, which is a major reason why I'm working with the PTAC, Nebraska PTAC group today. But I'm on the Leadership Council for NSBA. I'm the chairman of the board for the VBRC, or the VBOC in the Midwest, and I support other, you know, initiatives. I specialize in technique and strategy, okay? The techniques and strategies that we're going to go through today, the companies, if you're a member of Federal Access, our FA members have won over $1.6 billion in government contracts in the last 5 years with these type of techniques and strategies. Now, to get started for today, a couple expectations. We're going to be talking basic to advanced strategies. It says 50 minutes, really going to be about an hour within about 15-minute Q&A. Everything that we're covering today is a part of FA. Now, we're going to have a drawing after the webinar for that government sales manual. It's about 450 pages and over 1,000 techniques and strategies of how to communicate your value, position in the market, and actually win government contracts. And I will show you a URL at the end of the presentation where you can go to apply for that drawing. What we're going to cover today, it all revolves around, you know, federal prospecting, business development, and sales. But we're going to start with the federal budget. We're going to also talk about common challenges and misperceptions. We're going to talk about propensity, who buys how much, how often. Where do you go to figure that out? We're going to talk about 20 different prospecting methods. And I'm going to tell you which ones really work and which ones you probably should stay away from. We'll talk business intelligence, and we'll talk some Q&A. So let's start with this. Now, before I get too far down the road, if you have questions as we go through, type them into the chat box, okay, on the right-hand side of your screen. Veronica and her team is going to manage all the questions that come in. Do not hesitate to ask questions. If it's a question that Veronica's team feels should immediately be asked in the middle, they will interrupt and I will either answer or I'll say, let's put it in the parking lot till the end. But as you have questions, don't wait. Go ahead and put them into the chat box. Okay. So the federal budget. In general, you can see what 17 is going to look like, you know, about almost $4 trillion, right? You know, if you look at appropriations, and when you look at the government, you need to look at it from an appropriations and a non-appropriations perspective. Appropriations covers what most of us think of, you know, the Department of Defense and all the federal agencies. the mandatory programs, those are your entitlement programs, right? Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, that pretty much is your 2.6. And so you can see, if you didn't realize it before today, you know, the entitlement programs are literally 66% of everything that goes out the door for the government, okay? And the government year starts October 1st. It's not January 1st, which means, and by the way, I often go off on tangents when I'm giving presentations and seminars. The busiest quarter of the year is July, August, and September for the government. Why? Because that's their Q4. When you're looking at federal spending, you can see the breakout, right? Same as the previous slide. If you've heard of sequestration, it still has not gone away, folks. Congress has still not voted to remove it. And so, you know, you've got sequestration. Some folks go, oh, the government's starting to cut back. I would tell you, with a Republican as the president, we will probably see an increase in many areas. And then you look at all those numbers, and you look at, well, we know that 23% of all government spend is supposed to go to small business. And of that 23%, 5% is congressionally mandated for women-owned, 5% for minority or, you know, socially disadvantaged, the 8A, 3% for HUBZone, 3% for service disabled. All combined, that 23%, $260 billion. Now, why is that important? Because no matter what you hear from your colleagues, from your friends, from your teaming partners, no matter what happens, there's billions of dollars available in this market. So, what's your priority? Your priority is learning how to properly engage the market. That includes prospecting and sales. So don't listen to your colleagues that complain about not winning. If they don't win, it's not about what they learn. It's about how you it's about how you apply what you've learned, right? So don't listen to the colleagues that complain. They don't understand how to apply what you learn, either from, you know, whether it's a PTAX, it's a conference, you know, 100 different places. Budget cuts and sequestration, yes, big deal to the uneducated. All right. So again, it's not about what you know. It's how you apply it. It's about technique and strategy, and it's about business acumen. You don't have to have a college degree, folks. Okay. You know, you don't have to be highly educated. You simply have to understand that what you are learning from the PTAC, right, the Nebraska Business Development Center, you know, what you are learning at your conferences, what you're learning on this webinar today, it's about how you apply the techniques and strategies to take advantage of what you've learned. Okay. So let's talk about what you shouldn't be doing, right? Here's the most common challenges that I've come across, and I've worked with thousands of companies over the years. How do you identify who buys what you sell, and how do you contact them, right? It's one thing to have a bid matching system. And when I say bid matching, you may call it a contract management tool. It's a system that says, oh, look, here's an RFI, sources sought, RFP, RFQ. This is what you can be bidding on today or tomorrow. That's great. But that's very myopic, and it's very tactical, because by the time, you know, and you've probably heard this before, by the time it goes into acquisition, by the time an RFP or an RFQ actually hits the street, it's really too late. Now, some of those you're always going to bid on. Every company bids on stuff that they didn't have prior awareness of, but you need to identify who buys what you sell, right? Like over the last 20 years, and more importantly, over the last 24 months. Bidding without information or intelligence. Sort of already talked about this. if all you're doing is identifying opportunities and going after them without having known beforehand that it was going to be coming out and hitting the street, you're behind the curve. We're going to talk about intelligence later on. If you don't know the prospect, it's the same as bidding without intelligence or information. If you don't know who the competition is, and by the way, the systems, it's FPDS or USAspending.gov. Those are the two primary ones I always recommend. You can identify with those systems who buys what you sell and how much and how often. You can identify, who the competition is that has already won contracts with those agencies or with those services. You got to do some upfront work. And most companies, and probably most of you that are on the webinar today, are thinking, well, yeah, duh, Josh. We understand we need to do the upfront work, but we don't understand how to get from point A to point B, right? Because, yeah, we have access to FedBizOpps, or we have access to the bid matching, responses that we get from PTAC, et cetera. We've spoken to various folks, but it's still foggy, right? One, talk with your PTAC. For sure, talk with the PTAC and make sure you talk to a counselor that understands the technique and strategy side. And the other part is not tailoring your marketing collateral. Anybody that says, well, you got to get your capability statement done and start sending it out. No, totally disagree. Completely disagree with that. You can have a generic capability statement, right? It's your one-page marketing slick, right? On your website, but always tailor it. Always tailor it before you send it out. And we'll talk about that as well during this session. I've already hit on this. Don't just look for opportunities. You need to understand them, okay? Information enables you to map the capabilities, whether you sell product or service, whether you're commodity-based or service-based. Information about the market and the prospect and their requirements enables you to map your capabilities into value, okay? The companies that communicate value, those are the companies that win contracts. People buy from people they know. The reality is you could pull out the fact that this is for the government market, for public sector, and probably 90% of what I'm going to talk about today absolutely applies to your commercial business as well, okay? You're going to need to develop your own approach, what works, what does not, and go off on a tangent. You don't have to use every technique and strategy that we're talking about today, right? But start using some of them and keep building them into your process. Okay, 80% of the companies, which means probably 8 out of every 10 companies that are on this webinar today, focus on unqualified opportunities. That means you have no information or intelligence. All of a sudden it's boom, it's on FedBizOpps and you're like, oh, I want to bid that. You're already behind the 8 ball if you don't have any information to confirm and validate that it's qualified for you. So targeting agencies, which are likely buyers, right? Propensity, who buys what you sell, how much, how often. That's FPDS, the Federal Procurement Data System. That's USAspending.gov. By the way, USAspending.gov uses FPDS data. Almost every single bid matching system on the market, in one way, shape, or form, uses FPDS. So we'll talk later about how important it is that you learn how to use that system. If you don't know who buys what you sell, how much and how often, you're just shotgunning stuff out. You're just hoping to win some opportunities that you see out there. Now, many of you on the webinar today are going, this is great. We're 20 minutes in and you're not showing me how to do that. I'm going to show you how to do that in just a minute. Typical business focuses on after the RFP being released or the RFQ, right? And then you've got, meeting with prospects and sources sought and teaming. This is where you should be focusing. All right, so this is foot stomp number 2 for the morning. Whatever sales strategy you're going to put in place, whether you're a 1-person company or you're a 10-person or even a $300 million company, all the companies that successfully sell to the government focus on pre-acquisition. They do not focus on acquisition phase. That means while you will be using a bid matching system to identify what opportunities you're going to be going after, the majority of your time, 80%, is building relationships and communicating with the government. And if you're afraid of picking up the phone, you got to get over that, okay? So 80% should be focused on pre-acquisition, and then look at that. RFP is released, 5%. That means only 5% of your time. You should be focused on bid matching or FedBizOps. 5% of the time. Now, what do you do for that 80%? Where do you focus? We're going to go through it. For those of you that may be, if this is old school, just bear with me. For those that may be new, I keep talking acquisition and pre-acquisition. Pre-acquisition, look, RFI, sources sought, building relationships, talking to program managers, contract officers, what have you. But you can see RFQ, RFP, et cetera, that's all acquisition. The 80% is on the left there with pre-acquisition. Let me drill this point home. FedBizOps, only 10% of the opportunities in the entire market are on FedBizOps. FedBizOps, yes, it is the gateway to government sales. Yes, every opportunity that is $25,000 or more is supposed to be on FedBizOps. There are some exceptions. We won't go through those today. The majority are on FedBizOps. However, look at the pie chart. That 9 and 1%, that's 10%. And of the 10% of opportunities, there's 1% of them or 10% of them are sources sought. If I don't say it again, and I will say it again several times, if you're going to focus on FedBizOps and if you're going to focus on your bid matching tools, focus on creating rules that are specific for RFI, request for information, sources sought, and pre-solicitations. Let me say that one more time. Write that down if you didn't get it. RFIs, sources sought, and pre-solicitations. All 3 of those fall into pre-acquisition. All right? That means you have the ability to influence the acquisition, call the contracting officer, call the program manager, and collect information and intelligence so that once the RFP drops, you've got a competitive advantage against all the other companies. If you're commodity-based, it may be something on the capability side, on a feature side, and I don't say feature very often. I normally say value. But let's say you've got 2 products and you're like, government's not clear. Which one am I going to end up bidding? Well, if you have intelligence that says, oh, we can get away with it, this one capability of the widget being at 15% versus 22%, maybe it's width, maybe it's a micron, whatever it may be, you can then, you can lower your price. You don't have to use your most expensive line item for that SKU. And if it's on the service side, it can be very similar in thought and process in terms of what labor category, what the labor pricing is going to be. So focus on RFI, sources sought, and pre-solicitation. All right, so I went off on a tangent, right? The point of this slide is that you look at 45%, they know they need what you sell. Government is Fortune 1. They buy everything. maybe except for pornography, but everything else, right? So they buy everything that pretty much is put on the street. It doesn't mean it's a priority, and it doesn't mean they have money in a bucket specifically for what you sell. And then 45%, maybe you have a product or a solution or a service that they don't realize exists in the market, and you just need to educate them so that they can go, oh yeah, we need that. 90% of the opportunities that your company can be engaging are not on FedBizOpps. I think I've beat this dead horse many times. Okay. Who buys what you sell? How much? How often? You've heard me say this several times. There are two ways that I measure propensity. And when I measure propensity, I do it through a couple of different ways. First, the SBA. The SBA tracks. It's not very user-friendly. If you want these graphs, templates here, strongly recommend you download it. I think Veronica and her team, I think, have it right there on the right side of your screen. But these are the congressionally mandated percentages, and you can see which agencies in the Department of Defense meet their congressionally mandated set-aside requirements and which ones don't. If you look at 16, I don't think 16's out yet. If it is, it just came out. But look at the difference between 14 and 15, right? 83% in 15, last tracked year, hit their small business. 67 hit 8A. That is so low. Folks, it used to be so much higher for 8A. Woman-owned, yeah, it's constantly going up. HUBZone, a little bit. Service disabled going down. Now, how do you use this chart? Because a lot of people go, well, oh, let's take an example. Let's look at the Department, let's look at the Department of Justice, okay? And you look at HUBZone, right? It's the only red, that and 8A. And let's say you're a HUBZone, and you say to yourself, well, look, they're red. They need to hit their number. I'm going to target. If everything is equal and I have two opportunities in FedBizOpps, right? And I have intelligence. I've spoken to both, I've spoken to both the Department of Commerce and maybe the Department of Justice, Department of Interior and Department of Justice, right? And I only have the resources to go after one of these proposals. Well, I'm going to go after the Department of Justice because they haven't hit their number and they need to. It's the reverse. Pay very special attention to what I'm about to say. If an organization year over year is not hitting their numbers, okay, in a certain small business category or socioeconomic status category, the only reason they're not hitting their numbers is because their executive team doesn't care. It is not a priority. There is no other reason. Either an agency is going to hit their numbers, right, for whether it's small or 8A or veteran or what have you, or they're not. So, when you're talking to agencies and you go, hey, where are you guys in your small business set aside? If they go, well, we're at, 25%, versus another agency that says, well, we're at 15%, go with the 28 or 25 or whatever it is percent, because they are consistently working to hit their goal. All right. So, for example, on this, look at small business. Now, look at small business in 2013, right? Actually, let me see here. No, all of these are good. If you look at 2013 and see that 24.8%, right? Let's say DOD was actually 22% and they didn't hit their goal. 22% is still over $60 billion in small business set aside. So when you look at the SBA's small business scorecards, take them with a grain of salt. It's not as easy as it's red or it's green. If it's green, those are awesome agencies to be working with. If it's red, they may still be awesome. You just got to do a little bit more research. And you can see here's SDVOSB, you know, and in 15, if I'm a service disabled, I'm not engaging the Department of Education. If everything is equal, I'm probably, because I'm a small business, I'm going to focus on the ones at the top, right? SBA, state, Homeland, Commerce, GSA, Interior, EPA. If I have a choice, I'm not going after education, because they have clearly they've made it very clear that service disabled is not important. Now they will say they can't find enough organizations, companies, but no, at the end of the day, there's enough out there. Okay, and here's 8A. The second way of identifying who buys what you sell, how much and how often, is FPDS, the Federal Procurement Data System. We're not going to go through today how to use FPDS, okay? We've got Veronica, I'll talk to you afterwards, you and the PTAC team. I'll talk to you afterwards about what resources you have, because I've got some resources I can pool with you guys. There's two core areas for using FPDS that you're going to start with. One is easy search, where you can just type in keywords or NAICS codes or what have you, and the other is ad hoc reports. This will tell you over the last 20 years and the last 2 years, what have you, who buys what you sell, how much, how often, what companies are winning contracts, how many bids are going in on each of these RFPs, are the winners 8A, are they woman-owned, are they service disabled, what's the contact information for the contracting officer that ran that. Tons of intelligence and information that you need to learn how to use. Give you an example. There was a construction company that we, one of our members that we worked with, and this was between 2011, 2013. They had 13 different NAICS codes, and we found over 90,000 contract actions. Okay, 90,000 contract actions over those 11, 12, 3-year period, right? This is part of what we were looking through. And you can see, you know, each of these contract actions on the right side, you can see that the top 10 departments that for their NAICS codes, right? And the DOD is number 1, followed by GSA. You can look at within DOD, look at the middle block on the left. Navy, followed by Army, followed by Air Force. Who are the top vendors, right? These are obviously going to be big companies, but you know, you can find the small and the medium. SAIC, Lockheed. A lot of companies use FPDS. A lot of companies don't realize how to properly use that data as part of your sales process. I think this is a separate webinar that we're doing. You know, because between myself and other members of my team, we're giving 5 webinars to everyone here over the next 5 months. But this gives you a snapshot if you've never seen it. You know, we break it down by NAICS code. Let's say you've got 13 NAICS codes in FPDS, okay? Obviously, you know, where this company thought that 213112, the one all the way at the bottom, well, that's where we really need to be focusing. Everything being equal? No. No. If you find an opportunity, that's great, and it's in your wheelhouse. But building relationships is going to be, I'm going to be talking to the Corps of Engineers. Army Corps of Engineers probably about, you know, engineering services and those first couple. All right, now look at your, you know, federal supply classes. Again, right? And whether it's DIBS, you sell product and you use the DLA's internet bid board system or your services and use FedBizOps, whatever. There is so many different ways. I'm showing you like the tip of the iceberg of the intelligence you can use to help you focus and engage the market. Look at that, right off the bat, Army. And I can tell you that, you know, $11 billion, most of that is the Corps of Engineers, okay? Firm fixed price. What type of contract, right? How was it negotiated? Where's the place of past performance, right? If you're in the Midwest, this company that did this one, they said, well, we're going to focus on, this is before we did the research. They said, we're going to focus on, Missouri and Kansas and Illinois, but we're not doing Texas, just too big. We showed them what Texas had, and they were like, oh, wow. And they opened an office in Texas and won some contracts. And finally, you've got the ad hoc. This is the advanced search capability. Now, we've got, again, Veronica, I will talk with you. We've got some videos that walk through full-blown the basic and advanced and how to do pivot tables and et cetera. But for everybody on the webinar today, do not focus on the advanced or the ad hoc search capability until you've learned everything on the basic side that we just went through, okay? So, FPDS, Federal Procurement Data System, and I'm not going to go through usaspending.gov, but you can mark that down and go through that as well. So, that's the intel. That's the data, right? That's the research. If you understand FPDS and how to use it, you will know exactly who to be targeting and building relationships with. And then, oh, by the way, and that's 80% of your time. And then 5%, you're going through FedBiz Ops and responding to opportunities, okay? Now let's talk prospecting, right? There are 3 different levels of prospecting methods. You have some very weak ones, you have some viable prospecting methods, and you have some very strong. Excuse me. So, what we're going to cover is pretty much everything you've probably ever heard. But what I'm doing is I'm putting them into buckets so it's more easily understandable, and you are not wasting time, and you're focused in the right areas. So let's start with the weak. Government acquisition systems. FedBiz Ops, maybe DIBS, maybe the Navy's NECO, Army's ASFI, EMAL, FedBid, your bid matching services, right? Now, why are there warning signs on those first 2? Because they're incredibly valuable if you're using other strategies in addition to them. If you're building relationships with other teaming partners, you're building relationships with the government prospect. If all you do is go onto systems and start looking up what can I be bidding on, then those are weak because you have no competitive advantage. You have no leverage. You have not differentiated yourself within the market, and you have no information or intelligence. This is no different than commercial sales, folks. Yes, this is government, but it's market agnostic. It really is. If you focus on the RFQ, RFP, and you have no information, it's weak. Marketing collateral. There are companies out there that will say to you, hey, we'll give you a 1/4-page ad. We'll give you a 1/2-page ad. And, this binder, right, which, it's like 1.5 inches thick. We're going to distribute this to every contracting officer in the federal government, which is somewhere between 30 and 40,000 contracting officers. They deliver it. But here's what the newer companies don't know. Nobody in the government uses those marketing books, right? There are thousands of companies every year that pay $600+ to several thousand to go into these big old books, advertising books. You're just losing your money. The government uses online systems, folks. They don't use these other books. Do not get taken, all right? Government job openings, some people go, oh, well, look, for example, we're in a hiring freeze right now, right? The federal government, President Trump and his administration has put a freeze on federal hires. Don't go out there and go, oh, look, I just saw a report with Fish and Wildlife, with the Department of the Interior that says they don't have enough people to do their work, so we're going to target them. Nah, it doesn't work that way. Social media, the only social media if you're going to use is LinkedIn. Now, we're going to have another webinar, one of the next 4 webinars over the next 4 months that we're giving. Actually, I'm giving that one, is how to actually position during a government prospect meeting when you're actually in the office with your prospect, okay? And we talk social media and LinkedIn and how to better prepare for those meetings. In general, Facebook, Twitter, all these others, you're not going to use them for sales, folks. You want to use them to improve the brand of your company, that's fine. But for a prospecting method, LinkedIn helps initially. The others, not so much. Government directories. I won't use the name of any of the companies, but there are these books or online where you're told you get access to every program manager and contracting officer and senior leader in the government. There are 2 companies that are competitors head-to-head in this market. They will, if you're in the system for award management, you will constantly get hammered by them, okay, to buy their services. But here's the thing. Yes, it's got the commanding general. Yes, it has the director of the EPA, and it has the associate director, and it has all these senior people, and it has the director of contracting, has all these senior people. But all of the folks, the low-level contracting officers, the low-level program managers that you're going to be selling to are rarely in those government directories, okay? So don't buy those. That's my opinion. Freedom of Information Act, we'll talk more on that in a little bit, or I'm going to pass on that one. That'll be for another webinar. Viable. FPDS, USA spending, just talked about that. Now, if I just spoke heavily about it, why is it viable and not strong? Because it's just data. If you don't have the techniques and strategies of how to take advantage of that data, then that data is not going to provide you with a lot of information, a lot of value. OSBP, Office Small Business Programs, OSDBU, Office Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization, right? OSBP, Small Business Office, that's DOD. The OSDBUs are the federal agencies, okay? Do they impact acquisition? So for example, when you walk into a small business office on a military installation, and one of the key questions you need to ask is, hey, before an RFP hits the street, do the program managers, the contracting officers share that with you? Do you get to review it? Be nice about this question because this is a dangerous question. If they say no, they don't impact acquisition. Let me say that again. You ask small business office and small business reps in those offices, hey, before RFPs and RFQs are actually released to the market, do you have access to those? Do they actually ask you, should it be small? Hey, do you think there's enough 8As or woman-owned or HUBZone or service disabled? And see what they say. If they say no, we don't get any of that stuff. They really don't impact acquisition. And for me, I would collect some basic stuff and I would move on. There are a lot out there that do impact acquisition. There is a phenomenal, her name's Michelle Mendez. I remember her well because she worked for a joint, she was the director of small business for U.S. Transcom, Transportation Command, which is a major joint command, right? The contracting officers would send the RFP, draft RFPs to her and say, hey, we're sending this out full and open. And she would go, no, 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 no. I know there's a ton of small businesses that could do this. Please change it to small. And they changed it to small. Those small business offices, when you find them, are gold. Stay in touch with them. I cannot overemphasize how important those offices are. PTACs, SBDCs, VBOCs, very important, right? They will help you ensure that you're focused in the right areas, etc. PTACs are no different, right, than the small business offices. Make sure that you engage them. Make sure you engage the PTACs. Trade shows, yeah, it's great. You know, let's say you meet a prospect at a trade show or a national conference, you meet a teaming partner. That's great, but what's your follow-up? Agency forecasts. I am not a firm believer in these, okay? Some agency forecast, federal law requires that agencies put out a forecast of what they're of opportunities coming up in the next year. In general, most agencies simply do it to check the block. Some, depending on what you sell, you have to check them, go check them out. But if you don't see a lot of immediate value, I'd stay away from them, right? Don't spend a lot of time on them. Professional associations. If you're technology, AFS or communications, AFCEA. If you're construction, right, you're probably SAME, Society of American Military Engineers. Find the association for your industry. That's where you're going to find a lot of your teaming partners. Meeting with the incumbent, absolutely. Strong. Your network obviously is viable. If you're going to win government contracts, this is where you focus. Okay? Teaming strategy, teaming with other companies, right? First 3 or 4 contracts that most companies get in the federal market are through teaming. It's not priming their own contract. You're getting past performance. You're going to focus on meeting with the government and focusing not on RFPs and RFQs, but on sources sought and RFIs. Okay? FA, that's just for techniques and strategies. I'm not here to sell them. So, those 3 read. If you want to win government contracts, that's where you focus. I'm not guessing. This is time-tested fact, $1.6 billion in government contracts, all of our members, because that's where they focus. You still use the other pieces. You can see the arrows, right? Whether it's the bid matching systems, it's the small business offices, you've gone to trade shows, you're using FPDS, all of that feeds into those 3. This is the most important slide of this entire presentation, because if you can understand where you should be focused, all your strategies and all of your activities will get you a government contract. Now, I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent here. I was talking about teaming, talking about intelligence. One of the upcoming webinars is going to be advanced teaming strategies. In fact, I think it's the one next month. I'm going to go ahead and jump the gun and show you the triangle. Now, the triangle, what happens? Most companies, they find an opportunity and they go, oh, maybe they found it on FedBiz Ops, and they immediately go, oh, we can't do all of it, but we know a company that's probably going to prime. And what do? They call that teaming partner and go, we'd like to be on your team. Okay? Now, here's how it normally goes. I call them up and I go, hey, my name's Josh Frank. I'm with RSM Federal and FA, and I understand you're going to be priming this contract. And Mike goes, yep, we've got a team. We're putting it together. And I said, well, we're really good at what we do. I mean, we're one of the best in our region, but we can't do all the task area groups or all the requirements. we'd like to be on your team. And Mike goes, oh, Josh, that is outstanding. Now, I'm not the capture manager. I'm not the salesperson that's running that opportunity. That's actually Mary. Mary's in a different building. But let me do this. Josh, give me your phone number, give me your email, and let me tell Mary that I spoke to you, and we'll get back to you. Oh, that's awesome, Mike. Thank you. I give Mike my information. How often do I actually get a call? Is Mary going to call me? 99 times out of 100. The answer is no. Many of you that are on this webinar today probably have had very similar experiences. It's like, man, they won't get back to me. I can't get on the team. That's what normally happens. This triangle concept, probably the third most important thing I'm going to talk about today. Don't call that teaming partner. Okay, let's assume it's a source of sought, right? It's not already an acquisition. You found a source of sought on FedBizOps. Maybe it's pre-solicitation. And before I ever call a potential partner, I call the government. Every single time. If you're afraid of getting on the phone, you got to get over that. Okay, I call the government and I go, hey, Contracting Officer Smith, my name's Josh Frank, and I have a sneeze coming on. That's not what I say to the contracting officer. Hold on one sec. And I say to him, all I want to do, folks, is collect a couple of questions, a couple of bits of intelligence. A great question to ask that's really not very threatening is, why now? Why is it, this can't be a new problem. John's the contracting officer. John, this can't be a new problem. Oh, why are you releasing it now? John may give a whole bunch of different answers. Hey, John, is this going to be, a set aside? What's the core two challenges that has forced the government to put this out for bid? You don't have to have earth-shattering intelligence. Okay? You don't have to have earth-shattering intelligence. You just need something. After you have some info, here is what happens. I call Mike. Hey, Mike, Josh Frank, RSM Federal. We understand you're putting a team together. We'd like to be on that team. He goes, well, that's, Mary. She's a capture manager in a different building. I'll collect your contact info. And I go, whoa, 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 whoa. And I interrupt Mike. I go, Mike, we've been talking to the program manager, contracting officer. We have some intelligence that'll make the overall team more competitive. And Mike goes, hang tight. Let me get Mary on the phone and we'll do a three-way. That's all you got to do. That's how you get onto a team. That's how you use the triangle. There's more to it, but we'll cover that next month. By the way, remember this slide? 90% of the opportunities are not on FedBizOps. That's why the triangle is so important, because the triangle and your partners help you identify other opportunities. Your capability statement. Let me check how we're doing on time. Yeah, we're doing good. Your capability statement. It is your baseline. You're going to have it on your website. And I'm not going to go through all this today, but you should have a government page, a page specific for the government on your website. Even if you don't have any government contracts yet, you should have a government page. Why? Because if I'm a potential partner, I'm going to look at you and go, they're not real serious about government. They don't have a page for it. So again, make sure you have a page. You're going to tailor your capability statement for every meeting. You're going to tailor it for every teaming partner. Now, I want you to think in business terms. Various organizations out there will tell you, well, you can't use government logos in your marketing. If you look at the large corporations, the large companies, the big boys, you're not going to see a lot of logos. You won't see it in their marketing. You won't see it on their website. That's because they have hundreds of billions of dollars at stake. And you're not supposed to use logos unless the Public Affairs Office gives you permission to do so. Small businesses don't pay attention to that, okay? Yes, you're not supposed to, but we tell every single one of our members, put the logos on there. There's not a single company in the history, my 25 years, that I've ever seen was contacted by the government and said, hey, you're using our logo on your website or on your capability statement, take it off. So there's yes, I'm making a recommendation that goes against what the government tells you from a public affairs perspective. But I'm telling you right now, almost all small companies put logos on. Here's why it's so important for all the small companies. The standard capability statement gets 6 seconds. That's it. My eyes, government, teaming partner, 6 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those logos immediately tell me you've got past performance. Immediately. If you don't have government, use commercial logos for commercial past. I also tell folks, do not take a copy to your meetings. Let's say you're a service company and you do technology and you do these 12 different competencies, service areas. And the bottom two in your list are database administration and network engineering. You go into a meeting with the government or a prospect and they go, oh yeah, our primary focus right now is database and network engineering. You don't have it written into your opening paragraph in your CAPE statement. They're the two bottom listed in your list of capabilities. That's why you don't take copies before the meeting. Within 24 hours, go after the meeting, go back, take 5-10 minutes. That's all it takes. Update your CAPE statement so it looks like it's specifically focusing on what they need right now. Okay? Now, I am going to very quickly go through this because I'm hitting up against my time limit. What normally happens is when you go into a prospect meeting, all right, since I'm going to be doing this webinar in a couple of months, I'm going to go through a couple of things here. You'll be able to look at these slides. We are in the, all right, so this is for a small business, woman-owned, veteran-owned. And I'm going to read it out loud. Hey, we're in the business streamlining, consolidating info, data across, geographically dispersed networks to increase visibility and accuracy, speed of access. On average, we save our clients around 30% in operational expenses, more than 45 in data integrity and database cleansing costs. Now, we've done this for Monsanto and Blue Cross, Blue Shield, and the Corps of Engineers. And like most companies in our space, our website and our marketing collateral, look, you can look at our stuff. We do the same thing everybody else, does out in the market. But the two things we do really well are A and B. But before I go into more detail, can I ask a couple of questions? Would that be okay? Each one of these sections is very carefully scripted. Number one, do I say I'm a technology company? Folks, look at this very carefully. No, it doesn't say I'm a technology company. It says the value I provide. Look at all the key words: accuracy, speed of access, visibility, 30% this, 45% that. It's clear I'm technology. It talks about networks and database. But I don't say I'm a technology company. I say I give the value that my company provides. If you can't do this for your company, you need to take a step back and go, what's our value, okay? What value do we provide? And do you have quantifiable and qualifiable metrics? It doesn't matter what you sell. You could be a leadership company, a company that does consulting for leadership. You could be a product company, service, doesn't matter. You need to learn how to communicate your value. Number two, if I meet you at a conference, never seen you don't know you from Adam, you can tell me your value, but I don't know if you have any past performance. You're immediately telling me where you've done this. And then number three, before I tell you I'm the best thing since sliced bread, I differentiate myself by making myself equal to my competition first. That's probably one of the most important things on this slide, right? And then I say, well, the one or two things we do really well are A and B. And then I take control of the meeting. Now, those 4 sections: value, what proof you have, your past performance, make yourself equal, and then differentiate, and then take control of the meeting. Now, did you hear me say that I was a small business, woman-owned, or veteran-owned? No, you did not. The government is not going to buy from you because you're woman-owned, okay? The government does not buy from you because you are small, woman, 8A, veteran, service disabled. Don't care what people tell you. Yes, there are congressionally mandated percentages for all of these. But once they figure out what their acquisition strategy is going to be, let's say it's going to be woman-owned, set aside for WOSB. At that point, you're competing against all the other companies out there that are woman-owned. If you cannot communicate your value, you're done. You're not winning anything. Government does not buy from you, and your teaming partners do not team with you or subcontract to you because of your small status or because of your socioeconomic. They do it because of the value that you provide. Okay? Yes, this goes against what a lot of, probably what many of you have been told. But if you think of it in business terms, it makes perfect sense. Doesn't matter they're looking for 8A. If you can't compete against the other companies that are your competition, you're not going to win anything. This is the reason why 50% of GSA schedule holders fail. This is why one company is trained identically to another and they learn all the same stuff, but one learns to apply differently. This is what we're talking about, folks. So what did we learn today? Common challenges, misperceptions. We talked about propensity, use of FPDS that is outside this webinar, but you need to learn how to use it. Prospecting. Which prospectings work best? I'm going to ask you out loud. Just say them, nobody can hear you. What are the 3 areas for prospecting you should focus on? RFI, source of sought, teaming with other companies, and meeting with the government. It's not magic, but you need to make sure you stay focused in the right areas. Business intelligence, we talked the teaming triangle. We're going to talk that more next month. We went through a 45-second pitch. I really raced through it. There's more to it. I may cover it in another session. You need to learn that pitch because it works incredibly well. When I presented that pitch to the Association of PTACs in Washington, D.C. last fall, it was the #1 item. Everybody wanted it, okay? It's very, very good. And then finally, your status is not important than your value. Before we go into questions, the next one is March 22nd, same BAT channel, and it is on advanced teaming strategies. And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to the PTAC group, and we can do some Q&A.
Thank you, Josh. Great information. And thank you for putting PTACs in the viable box and not filling us at all. I would just add the red arrow to lead to the strong strategy because we do help small businesses be more successful, as you all know. And you mentioned FPDS. FPDS is part of our market research service that we provide to our clients, and I did forget to mention that all of our services are free to Nebraska small businesses. Now, we do have a couple of questions, and the first one is, what would be your advice to small businesses that use their capability statements? And a lot of what I hear is the small businesses just email their capability statement to the contracting officers left and right, and that's all they think that they have to do. Any advice on that?
Yeah, so ask me, I heard the whole piece, but what is the specific question again?
what would you recommend small businesses do with their capability statement to be most efficient?
Okay.
Because a lot of them just email it to the contracting officers, and that's all they do.
No, that's all right. So that's a good question. And let me go back, Veronica. Very good point. I will add an arrow on PTAC because yes, you guys have a strong package as part of your research using it. All right. So to answer the question, first of all, there's no right answer. Okay, there's no right answer. But what I would do is, I would let's say it's a small business office. I'll do a couple of examples. Small business office, and I know it's Mary Johnson over at the Treasury. Let's say it's IRS, and I don't find her email and send my CAPE statement to her. I call her up, and say, "Hey, Mary, my name is Josh. We provide the following value." Again, I don't start with, "Hi, we're a woman-owned small business that provides XYZ services." As soon as you do that, you're telling me your status is more important than the value your company provides. And so use your 45-second pitch. Okay, this question came at a very good time. Okay, and so you talk with Mary. Mary, I understand based on research, and that research is, it's through the PTAC, and you're looking at FPDS. I understand there's two organizations within the IRS that procure our services, buy our product, and I understand that, but I'm not sure who the program managers are. Can you help me? Now, that is so different, and I'll get to the CAPE statement in a minute. That is so different from simply calling up going, "Hi, I want to sell. Who should I talk to? I don't know what I'm doing." Instead, you're one out of 100 companies that clearly has done their research. I know that within the IRS, this division and that division are the ones that I should be talking to, right? The research has been done. And the small business rep goes, "Okay, obviously, let's say I'm Mary," and it's like, "Wow, okay, you know what you're doing. Well, here's what I need you to do. Send me your CAPE statement, and we'll get started." And I would say, "Well, absolutely, I'll send you the CAPE statement, but can you help me identify who the two program folks are?" And if she says no, then that office is worthless. Okay, I'm going to be real hardcore about this. That small business office either helps you or they don't. Most of them will say yes, though, okay? And what you do is you say, "All right, Mary, I'm going to forward you the CAPE statement, but can you do me a favor? I don't want you to forward the CAPE statement on to John and Mike, the two program folks, but would you do me a favor? Would you send a one-sentence email to them and just say, 'Hey, Mike, I just spoke with Josh over at RSM. I recommended he connect with you.'" That way it's not a cold call. Now you've been referred in. Now when you respond to that email, and by the way, you respond to that email within 24 hours, it's a warm intro. Now, I answered a lot more than the capability statement because the CAPE statement is not the important piece of this. It's how you position and what strategies you use to actually get in. So, I would tell you it's not about giving your CAPE statement because most of them go into the circular file. What's important is how you approach a contracting officer, a small business office, a program manager, or a teaming partner. And it starts with, you don't start with you being small. That'll come out. It doesn't start with you having a status. It'll come out. It starts with your value. Okay, so hopefully I went off on a couple of tangents. The person that asked that question, let me know if that's helpful.
Thank you. And we have another question on any advice for effective responses to RFIs and sources sought.
Yes. How do I answer this? Okay, so Yes, that's a very, the reason why I'm stuttering on this is because I'm not here to sell. But Federal Access has all of those templates. When you respond, all right, so let me do it this way. When you respond to a sources sought, you don't simply answer the questions they ask for, and you do not have to answer every question that they ask for. Remember this, sources sought is pre-acquisition. You cannot be dinged. You cannot be non-responsive like with RFPs or RFQs, okay? And so when you respond to a sources sought, yes, you should have a template. It should have a cover page. It should have a copy of your capability statement at the back. It should be a couple pages, nothing crazy. And after you've responded to their questions, you want to influence the acquisition. We're actually going into another webinar I think I'm giving later in this spring, but it shows you how incestuous all this information is. In addition to answering their questions, you want to influence the acquisition. And so you're an expert in your industry. Say to them, hey, in addition to responding to your questions, we have 3 or 4 recommendations. And those 3 or 4 recommendations are based on your past performance. Let's say you're a security company that does CCTV cameras, and you've done CCTVs for a school district that spanned 4 different major buildings, right? Well, how do you weed out your competition and get competitive advantage? You say, hey, we also recommend, and this is in your sources sought, we recommend that, based on what you're looking for, you really should try to find companies that have past performance where they've supported 3 or more buildings across geographical boundaries, because it'll ensure that they have a level of maturity so that the government doesn't end up spending more money fixing problems or challenges. If even only one of your recommendations in your sources sought makes it into the RFP, you know how everybody always says, oh, this RFP was written for, this is wired for some other company, we're never going to win it. It's because they did those things I just said. So you always want to ghost recommendations into every sources sought and give them more than what they want. So there's a short answer.
And also I would add to always respond to the RFIs and sources sought that are available for your industry, because that's how you can put your name in front of these contracting officers.
Absolutely.
I don't think we have any other questions. Do you have any questions, guys? Okay. Thank you, Josh. I think we're just about where we need to be on time. I would say that the next webinar is on March 22nd, and it's on advanced teaming. And with that, I would like to wrap up the webinar today. Thank you for attending, and for more information and for complete list of events, please visit our website. Thank you and have a great day.